Welcome to Everything and Anything, the channel that helps you with everything and anything. Today, I'm going to show you how to sort, group, and calculate data in a pivot table. Pivot tables are a really powerful tool in Excel that allow you to summarize large amounts of data in a meaningful and organized way. Today, I will show you a step-by-step on how to sort and group data and how to create a dashboard from this pivot table by using same timeline for all the graph in it. So first what we're going to do is we're going to look at sample of data, which you can find the exactly same sample in the link in bio for free if you want to train at the same time. So as you can see here, I'm just going to go in Microsoft Excel and I'm just going to use employee sample data. This is an employee sample data that I found online. And you can see here, we can see from the column A to N, we have several columns with different names. The first column represents the employee ID. The second is a full name. C is job titles, etc. As you can see here, in row number 1, we do have the detail of everything. I'm just going to make it a bit bigger so everyone can see. If you look quickly on this dashboard, you do see that some things repeat. For example, it looks like some of the job titles repeat. Some of the job titles repeat, such as director, you can see it repeats here, manager. You do also see that the department repeats sometime. We do have some business units which repeats. The gender here is male or female, so we are able to see that there's only 2 options. We do have ethnicity, age, and we do see some bonuses which repeats as well as countries and cities. There might be a lot of different things that you want to know from this data. You might want to look through it and then search things which are relevant. So, for example, looks at all of the people between 20 and 30 and what are their role mainly. However, if we click on the first row and we want to see what is the last row that we have, you can use Control, Shift, and the arrow down, and then you're going to see we have until 1001 rows of data. So imagine going through them one by one will be way too long. What we want to do is create a pivot table. So we're going to select column A, and then we're going to select until the last column we want to look into. So here, column N. And then we're going to create Insert, and then we're going to insert a pivot table. As you can see here, it's going to ask you to select a table or range. There is 2 ways of doing this, or you do exactly as I did, where you select first the column, or you can select a range. So for example, we can decide we only want the first 23 rows. Why this is not what we want to do today, and why do I don't recommend for you to do that, just because if you begin to add data on that spreadsheet, so for example, if you grow your company by 50 more employees, you wouldn't have your pivot table updating and being clean. So you wouldn't update with the latest data. So what I recommend doing is always select the overall columns. When this is done here, it will ask if you want to use an external data source, which we don't want. We are happy with the first one. And then it's going to ask you if you want a new worksheet or an existing worksheet. I always go for a new worksheet. It will just create a new tab, as you can see, and call it sheet 1. So here, let's say we want to know the number of people. So we're going to do number of employee per city. So we know that we have the type of the cities. So what I'm going to do is, as you can see here, I have some fields which popped up, pivot table fields. You're going to have several fields. Let me bring this a little bit lower so you can see all of the columns here. Make sure that in your data, the first row, which will be your headers, are extremely clear. Why is that? Because then when you create your pivot table, you know exactly what everything means and you don't have to go double check. Here we're going to want to have the city. So I'm going to select the city. There's 2 ways of adding the city into your pivot table. Or you click on the little square next to it and it will directly bring it to a value. And it will count the number of cities within the data that you have. As you can see here, it says 1000, which is right as we have 1000 rows. However, this is not exactly what we're looking for. So let me remove this. What we're going to do is we're going to select the city and then we're going to bring it until our rows. Here you can see on our Excel, on your tab, we have all of the cities which appear. Then what we're going to do is we want the number of employees. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the employee ID. We're going to add it to the values. And then here you're going to see it brings up 500,000, even more. We know this is not right as we know there is only 1,000 employees. So why is it wrong? This is because, as you can see on the values, it brought up as a sum. How to change that? You're going to click on it. It's going to pop up a pivot field, a table field, with the source field being the employee ID, the name, and then different way of summarizing it by. We want it to be a count. So instead of sum, which is going to be, for example, the employee ID number 1 and the employee ID number 2 will do 3, because it will literally take 1 plus 2. We will do a count. We will count how many employee IDs there is. So as you can see here, we do see the different number of employee IDs and we know the grand total is 1,000. So what we're going to do then is we're going to sort. So what you're going to do is you're going to click on the count of employee ID. Don't click on the header, click in one of the data. And then we're going to double click or click right, sort, larger to smallest. And then we're going to see everything is going to be sorted. As we don't have any blank here, you do see that there is nothing attached. However, if you would have some employee ID without a city attached, you will see it up here. I often keep it here just to make sure that my data is clean. If I do see this pop up with a number, I do know that this is because it isn't clean, and then I can go and update it. So here we can see that most employees are from Miami. Then we have some in Austin, Seattle, and the list where we have the least employee is Sao Paulo. There are other things that you might want to do. You might want to add the average salary that we pay those people. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue to add some data right here. So you want to know, so the annual salary, we're going to select it and bring it to values. Again, the other way of doing it is just clicking on annual salary. There's two things that appear here. First, you do see in values the sum of the annual salary, but you also see values appearing in column. So let's update first sum of annual salary. What's going to do now is going to look at the 121 employees and add all of their salary up. However, what we want is we want to know on average how much we're paying a salary for all those employees. So what we're going to do is, again, like we did the count, we're going to double click on this. We're going to go into average because we want the average of the annual salary. But then I also want it to be as a currency. As you can see here, it's just a number. So I'm going to click on number right here. And then I'm going to add currency. You can add the number of decimal. I leave it at 2 and then OK. And then again, OK. Another way to do this, if you don't see that you have, so if I am going there, and if you don't see that you have a number here, what I suggest is you can just select the data that you have, and then you just format it as you want. So here you can go here and format it as you wish. So here, as we can see, the salary is 108,000 on average for the employees in Miami. But as you can see also, we can see in Sao Paulo, they're a little bit higher, 110. What we can do here, because we already sorted the count of employee from the largest to the smallest, so if you begin to sort the annual salary, it will mess this first one up. We're going to use a conditional formatting. I'm going to select the first row of data. I'm going to bring it down. And then I'm going to use a conditional formatting, which is in our task here on the headboard. Click here. And then we're going to do a color scale. I like to do a red to green, and then you can see here. So as you can see, the highest salary that we have is in Austin, and then the lowest salary that we have is in Seattle. You might want to go a little bit deeper in this data and decide that you actually want to know if it depends on the job title. What we're going to do then is we can click on the job title and use it as a column. As you can see here, you're going to have the count of employee with all of the job titles. And then if I go on the right until the end of the job titles, you will have then the average of annual salary. When we added the two different values, in column we had the value appearing here. What I can do is I can take the value and just bring it down under the other column, which is the job title. And as you can see then, it will do all of the job titles and then update the values per job titles instead of the other way around. As you can see here, we have a lot of data, so I wouldn't recommend to use this as a review. It can be interesting if you know exactly what you're looking for or exactly what job you're looking for. However, what I would recommend is something a little bit smaller so it's clearer for you to present. So let's remove this field and let's use the gender. So we're going to take gender and we're going to add it again. Let's add it just in column. We do see that we have count of employee, so it looks like we have way more female than we have male. Female are highly have a higher salary than male. But let's do by gender. I want to see all the information, so I can take value and then I bring it lower than gender. So here I see female are 515 with 112,000 and male are 485 with an average annual salary of 105. And then you have the blank. Again, I like to keep the blank just because I like to see if there is any weird things in my data. It's really important for you to keep your data super clean. However, you might want to remove this. So how to do this? You can go into the blank, you double click right, you can go on filter and then you can go on hide selected item. As you can see here, both of our blank will disappear. You might also decide that you don't want to see actually the amount, the average salary that you have, but you want to know the percentage. So how is it divided? What we're going to do here is we're going to do into our average of annual salary. You're going to click on the little eye, or you can click right or click with your two fingers on the keyboard and then show data as, and then you can do a calculation. So you have a lot of different calculation. We can do a percentage of row total, percentage of column, percentage of parent total, etc. What we're going to do here is we're just going to do a percentage of column total. And as you can see, when our grand total is 100%, the some of the cities are higher and some of the cities are lowest. What is quite interesting is we do see that male which are employed in the cities where female are highly paid are lower paid, etc. We do see. So yeah, so here you can see the difference in the percentages. However, we are going to want to make this data presentable, and you might want to update it super quickly. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a dashboard out of this pivot table. So let me show you how to create that. First, we're going to want to create a graph. So there is a really easy way to create a graph. So first what we're going to do is you're on your pivot table page and you're going to see on the top row, you're going to have a lot of different options. You're going to have one which goes pivot table analyze. Let's click here. As you can see, several things pops up. And we have one which is pivot chart. Let's click on this one. As you can see here, it's going to give you the one that it recommends. And we're going to see exactly what we have. So we're going to have the number of employee ID and the average of salary. It doesn't seem that is really user-friendly. You can change it. So let's click right here. So let's just close the pivot table. What we're going to do is we're going to click right and then change the chart type. Let's do a combo for this one as we are looking at two different data. So yeah, so as you can see here, we have a lot of different data from employee ID to female average of annual salary. However, everything is not super user-friendly, nor can be read easily. So let's delete this. So I'm just going to select it and delete. What we're going to do is we're going to go back into the pivot table and we're going to take off one of those data. So let me just go back on the pivot table. So how do you do that? You can click right and then go on show field list, or you can go into your pivot table analysis. Once I have this, I decide that let's look at only the count of employee. So I'm just going to click on the average of annual salary, click right, and then click right and then remove field. Here we do have the number of cities by male and female, and then we're going to create a chart. So I'm selecting this, pivot table analysis, pivot chart, and then you can see here the difference. What we can do is we can decide that we don't even want the genders. Let's take it off. And let me change the chart and make it a pie chart. As you can see here, we do see the cities which are the highest: Miami, Austin, Seattle, and Chicago, and then it's coming smaller and smaller. You might want to add other things on your pivot table. So let's, for example, imagine we want to add data labels, so we are able to see exactly how many there are. You can then change the color. Again, you can go into format data series, format data label. So for example, here, we do know that we want to see the value from the cells. We have the series name. So here you're going to see total. We're going to have the category name, so it's going to give you even more information. Let's take this off because it's making it a little bit heavy. We can have a percentage, so it's telling you how much it is. Personally, I like to work with percentage, so I'm just going to take off the value, and then I'm going to see exactly the average percentage, so we can see Miami being really the biggest with 12, etc. What we're going to do is in black is not the best, so I'm just going to make it white. So again, to make it a little bit bigger, and that's it. So the first number of employee per city we have, let me just change the title. So I'm just double clicking on the title, and then we can have a number of employee per city. I do see that I made a mistake on type, so let me just add a E here. So let's imagine we want to create a dashboard. So what I like to do in general is I like to prepare my dashboard. So let me just add a new sheet. Let me put it first and create the dashboard. So my dashboard, let me merge and center, and I'm going to have a title. And then here, I'm going to put slicers and filters. So what I want to do, I want to have a slicer for cities. I want to have a slicer for start date. And I want to have a slicer for gender. For ethnicity first, and then a slicer for gender. And then I'm going to create a little bit more information about what exactly I want to see. So I want to have the salaries. So for example, I want to know who is paid more and what's the role. Then I want to see on average the company retention, so how many people are staying, company retention per role. I want to be able to see the number of employees in total this year, per year. And then I want to have the average bonus paid. I want to see, then I want to see perhaps, as we created here, number of employee per city. I want to see salary per department. And then I want to see bonus per department. And then retention by department. Okay, so we do already have the number of employee per city. So I already have this one. So let me turn it in yellow. We are going to create the slicer, which is a later stage. However, let's go from there and let's create another tab to create the salaries per department. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click right and I'm going to literally just duplicate this one. So I'm going to move, so or you have already a duplicate option here, or you can create move or copy, create a copy, and then you can just put it after number per city, of employee per city. And we're going to create here salary per, I think we wanted salary per department. So here what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change a little bit my pivot table. So again, click right, and then we are going to go on show field list. As you can see here, it appears here. So you're going to just close the format here. So we want the department. So let me go lower and then select department and go on rows. We don't want the cities anymore, so I can just select it and remove fields. Once we have the department, we want to know the amount of salary. So the average salary paid. So let me add the salary. Let me take off the count of employee. And then we have the amount of salary here. Again, as we have seen, we do see that this is a plus. It looks like IT is really high. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an average. And we're going to do on field setting, number, first a currency, sorry. Let's first make it a currency. And then I want it as an average. Okay. So as you can see, even though the IT looked like they were paid the most at the beginning just because of the sum of the annual salary, it's actually the one with the lowest salary, and this is just because there must be a high number of employee. So then what we're going to do is we're going to sort it. So again, I select one data row and then sort from largest to lowest. And we're just going to change this chart as I feel that the pie chart might not be the one the most appropriate. And we're just going to do a column chart. So as you can see here, we do have a decrease. So once we have that, we're going to continue and we're going to create a move or copy and create another one. Create a copy and then we select and then we go OK. So let me first change the title of the last graph we created, which is salary per department. So here, and let's make it colorful, and then we want to know the bonus per department. So this is an easy one. We're literally just going to change the salary and use bonus field. So here again, I'm closing the format shape. I'm going into the pivot table fields, going into the bonuses, and then I'm going to unselect annual salary so we don't see it anymore. And then I have the sum of the bonus. Once again, it's not relevant as a bonus cannot be added. Everyone will have different ones. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click right on it, field settings, and we're going to again make an average. And it's not a number anymore. It's going to be a percentage. So instead of choosing number of currency, we're going to use percentage. And then okay. And then you're going to be able to see the average of bonuses here. Let me just make it as sort from largest to smallest. And then we're going to just change the title here by bonus per department. So once we have that, bonus per department, once again here. Salaries, who is paid more and what is the role. So once again, I'm going to select it, move or copy, create a copy, just going to go lower. And I'm just going to use salary, who is paid more and what is the role as a title. Again, you can't have it, so high pay and department. So here it's going to be a little bit different as we're going to have the employee names. So let's go back. We're going to have the employee, full name of the employee. I'm going to select it. So you're just full name here. I'm going to put it lower. So we're going to have 1,000 names, which is quite a bit. We're going to have department in column. So we're going to see everything. Let me select the graph and take it off. We'll create after. and then average of annual salary, it's already selected. So again, then in the grand total, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select, I'm going to sort it from largest to smallest, and then we'll be able to see that Robert Rogers is the one with engineering with the highest salary, followed by Kingsley, and then Christopher, and then Eloise. Once we have that, again, we verify that we use the average salary. We can decide that we just want to use a grand total, or we used everything. But again, here I think it's quite clear to have this data. So let's imagine we want to begin and put everything together. So let's start first with number of employee per city. I'm going to Control C, Control V here, and I'm going to make it a bit bigger. Again, don't have to, but I'm just number of city. Then I want the salary per department. So I'm just going to selecting it, Control C, again, Control V. When you do that, you keep everything connected together. So then it will be easier to, if you change anything, it will be easier for you to have them together. Bonus per department, again, Control C, dashboard, Control V. And then you'll be able to see everything together. Let's create some of the slicer here. So there's two different ways of doing a slicer. So the first way of doing it is you go into the tab, and you're going to go into pivot chart analysis. Here you're going to see you're going to have insert slicer and insert timeline. What we're going to do is we're going to insert a slicer, and then you're able to decide what you want the slicer to be linked with. So if we go back to the dashboard, we do know that we want a slicer for cities, a slicer for start date, a slicer for ethnicity, and a slicer for gender. So let's create those. So let me go here, and then you're going to see pivot chart table, insert slicer, and I want the first one to be for cities. I'm going to click on OK, and then it's going to appear. So here is our first slicer. However, you're going to see if I select one, only one of the tab is going to change, which is this one. Only one of the graph is going to change. So what I'm going to do is then I'm going to want to link and connect this slicer with other with a different graph. So I'm going to report connection. And I realized that I want it to be connected with absolutely everything. And then I'm going to click on OK. So then if I click on Austin, everything will update. You can create then a slicer for date, a slicer for absolutely all of the other parts. Let's quickly create company retention per role and number of employee per year. So I'm just going to do exactly the same. I'm going to move our copy, create a copy, and then go at salary per department. I'm going to change, and I'm going to want to do which one? So we said number of employee per year. Number. Again, I'm going to select this and I'm going to delete it. So how to do a number of employee per year? So first we want to know the number of years that we have and when they started. So what we're going to use we're going to use first the higher date. I'm just going to untick everything so we can start fresh, and we want higher date as a row. So you take the higher date and then you go down as a row. As you can see here, is going to divide the higher date into 3 different rows: 1 year, 1 quarter, 1 higher date. What does that mean? That means every time you're going to click on the little plus here on the side, it's going to open to give you all the quarters. And then if you click again, you're going to have the different months we hired. I don't really care about the quarter. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take it out. So by doing that, I'm just clicking on it, double clicking, and then remove field. Then we want to know how many employees are employed per year. So I'm just going to use a number of employee ID, and I'm going to use it as a value. Here again is going to do a sum. And again, if I should use a data source to explain to you a little bit more, What it's doing is looking at two different number employee IDs. So for example, let's take this one, and is doing a sum of those two. So here is going to give us 11. So this is why we want a count. Again, if you look at here, you would be able to see the sum here would be 11, however, the count will be 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to number of employee per year, and I'm going to change the sum to be a count. So here again, we do see the different years they've employed people. What is interesting is once we have that, we can create quickly a pivot chart. So here, and then we have some of the days. So as you can see, 2018 has been one of the best year for them to employ before 2019, 2020 being slower, and then 2021 again spiking at 85. You can change the chart again. We can select it, change chart type, and put it as a line with some dots. It might be easier for you to see. So once we have that, we are gonna Control C, and then we can do Control V and keep it here, just we know it's the number of employee per year. So now that we have the number of employee per year, I'm just gonna make it as yellow. Average bonus, we already have it actually by looking at the average bonus per department, so I really don't think we need it. However, retention by department. So I would like to know how many people are leaving per department. So I already did create a first tab, which is looking at the exit date. Let me show you by clicking right, and then we can look at the show field list. As you can see here, we have the exit date and the count of employee. On the first one is a blank one, and this is 897 count of employee. That means 897 are still here, which is quite interesting. What we can do is from that we can create, we can decide that we hide this first one. So let me click on it, and then we can all sort, and you sort it from the higher or the lowest, or you hide it. So let me click on the row label, filter, hide selected item. As you can see here, you only have the people you have hired. Let me hide the blank. This is again just for me to make sure that all of my data are clean. And then let's just create a pivot chart. So as you can see here, we do have some data, and then we have some data which are updating on top of each other. So this is when we have two people leaving. I don't think this is the nicest way to look at it. So there is other way you can decide to do it. You can decide to divide it also per year. However, here, just for the sake of this exercise, we just leave it here. Let me just, I think my chart just deleted. So let me just create it, and let me just change the chart type. So there is different type of charts you want to, you can do. You can do statistical, waterfall, or other. What we're going to do here is we're just going to do a line just to show that there is a little spike on 2022 and 2023. However, the rest is quite stagnant as one per year. So we can expect between 1 and 2. So again, I'm just going to check here, retention. Again, something that we didn't calculate it was the retention per department. So we can have two. We have retention per year. It can be interesting. So let's keep it like this. I'm going to add it here. So here, for example, I could date retention per year, or per date more specifically. And then retention per department. So we don't need this one anymore. And then the salary, we have created it already by salary per department. Did we create salaries higher salary? Here. Good. So what we're going to do here is we are going to create the retention per department. So we have already, we have the date, and we're going to create the department. So let me just update this, and then again click right, move our copy, create a copy, which you can just go under, and then OK, and then you can change this by departments. Again, what we need to know here is not when they left, but by which department they left. So I'm just going to select the department, and then I'm just going to select the rows. I'm just going to add it under the exit date, and then I'm just going to decide, take the exit date, click right, and then remove field. So again, here you have the count of employee and the department. It's not exactly what we are looking for, as we want to know the number of people that left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the exit date, and I'm going to add it as a column. What is it doing? This is adding all of the data of the exit, and then it's saying how many people at the end we lose by department and when did they left. Why this might be important, even though this is quite big? It is important because sometimes people leave because of restructure within the department, because of big changes within the department. And it's important to know. It's also important to know how many employees per department we have, which I think we calculated this per city, but not per department. So we could add that later. So once we have all of that, let me just add this one. We have here, as you can see, already they selected. What we can do is, if you don't like this, if you want to make it a little, as you can see here, we don't see any data. So let me see if I just change the chart by moving the chart. So click right, change chart type. If we want to have it by column, I'm not sure it's going to help. If we want to go on design, and then you're going to switch rows and column, it's not really helping either. So we're just not going to use this for now. We might use the exit. So we can use exit as a filter by selecting only the people that exited. So you select this, and then you have the count of employee on people that left. And then here, from here, we're going to create a chart. So let's go here, and then let's create pivot chart. And then you can see the number of people that left, IT being the highest one. So you can go on design, add chart element, and then we want to have, we don't want a legend, we want a chart title above the chart, and then we're going to call it retention per department. I'm just going to delete here, and then we're going to Control C, and then, oops, dashboard, Control V. Okay, so now that we have all of the dashboard, I'm just going to delete this. I'm going to undo my merging, and then I'm going to put them all together. So first I want to know my number of employee per city. Actually, first I want to know the people by department, but I'm going to change a little bit this one. What I want to do is I want to have the department being part of the slicer. So I'm just going to remove this field, and here is what I have. So again, this is a really long 1,000 amount of people, which obviously is quite big. Actually, something which might be interesting. Let me just move, create, copy one, and then I want to know the age per salaries to see if this is impacted. So instead of having full names, I want to have the age. So let me just select age, and then we're going to want to add it here. Oops. I'm gonna take off the name. Oops. So let me click right, remove field, and then we can see the different names and the average, the different age and the average annual salary. So what we're going to do is we can make a chart out of this. So I'm just going to go pivot table, and then we can do pivot charts, and then again we're going to change. You can try different things. Some will not work just because of the type of, it might not up because of the type of Excel or because of the type of pivot table you're using. Here we're just going to do pi, and then I just want to see the different age if there's any correlation. Again, it might not be the easiest to see, so let's try a line. Yeah, and we do see that there is not really any difference in between the ages, so actually that might not be that interesting for us to look into. I'm gonna still use it because it might differ by department, so I'm just gonna use it still. Control C, and then I'm going back to my dashboard, and then I'm copy pasting it. So here we have everything. So we have age, per salary, number of employee. Let me just take those two off. We're gonna have number of hire per year. Let me make this a bit smaller. Again, you can make it as big as you want. Because I'm in a really big screen, I don't always need to have the data really big. I also present on really big screens, so you might not need all of the data showing exactly the same way. There's also other ways that I will show in another video to make sure everything is aligned. Here I don't really mind, I'm just making it quickly, but you might want to have them exactly the same size, all of them. And then we're going to have a bonus per department, salary. So let's do perhaps a salary per department and bonus per department together. I'm going to do retention per department as well as number of hire together. And then you might want the retention just on the side here. Although, to be honest, we already looked at this. I'm not going to even need this one. Here we're going to use different slicers. So we talked about the city. I'm just going to add quickly the salaries here. So what we're going to do is we can literally select the pivot table. And there's two ways of doing this, is or you decide that you want to create it in another page, or you can copy paste it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go in pivot table analysis. We're going to go on option, and then we're going to go into, we're going to select the pivot tables. So Control Shift and then arrow on the side on the right, and then arrow down, Control C, and then we're going to go into dashboard, and then we're going to copy paste here. Again, this is going to be a copy paste of the pivot table, so it's going to react still as a pivot table wants. So if we make sure that everything is linked, let me just hide this table just so I don't have to move everything. So here, if we decide that we have the cities and we want to connect everything, we're going to do exactly that, what we have done before. So let's just quickly click right and then report connection, and then we're going to make sure that everything is linked together. As we can see, it is. So here, if I check on Miami, everything's going to update. So I'm going to see who is paid first in Miami. We have the age per salaries, the number of hire per year. There is more and more hire every year. Finance is the most paid. However, we do see that accounting is the highest department, bonus per department, and the accounting is the highest salary overall. If I go on Rio de Janeiro, I do see everything again updating. Human resources being the highest paid, etc., etc. I can then, if I want to select several, I can click on the little green line here, and then I select 2 or 3 together. I can then decide that I want to unselect everything. So what I can also do is I can decide to add another slicer. So I can go in slicers here, and then you do have all the information about your slicer. What we're going to do is we're going to add another one. So I'm just going to go here into one of my page. I'm going to select pivot chart analysis, insert slicer, and then we're going to decide that this slicer is going to be about gender, and then we're going to add it. So what I'm going to do, Control C, I want it over there. I can add it just under. So not only I want to know Miami, but I want to know only the female working in Miami, and then you're going to have everything updated. So again, it's quite interesting to see the difference between some of the data. You're going to see some of the data, as you can see here, only the age per salary changes. This is because this is where we did it. So that means all of the other are not connected together. So I'm just going to right click, report connection, and make sure that I select all of the document together. So we know that everything is updating at the same time. So here again, if I change female and male, I will see the difference everywhere. Make sure you save, just because you wouldn't like to have a difference in your data, and then you can update this and make it look a little bit nicer with different colors, etc. Another way, if you don't want all of your manager or any one of your employees to look at the tab, you can just click on the tab, right, and then hide. We can decide that we want to hide absolutely all of the tabs. So for example, let me just add them quickly. And then we can even hide the data, or you can leave the data, but just so they can look into it. What you can also do is make sure that you verify that your data are clean. If they're not clean, you will have problem with your pivot table. When you come back to your pivot table, make sure that you always refresh your data. So there is a different way of doing this. It's just making sure that whenever it's going to open, it's going to ask you if you want to update. Click yes. Or you go into your data here and you can say refresh all. It will make sure that everything is refreshed with the latest data that you've linked. Sometimes you might have questions about some data. So for example, you don't really understand how the average salary can be that high or that low, or why, for example, this person is paid this amount of salary, or you want to have more information about the highest paid salary. So let's unselect everything and clear the filter. We know Robert Rogers is the one the highest paid. We want to have more information about it. This is actually quite easy to find. Whenever you have a pivot table, you just have to double click on the row of data and then it will create another tab and give you all of the information. So Robert Rogers is a vice president. He is employee number 556. Is working in engineering, manufacturing. He's a male, Caucasian. Is 53 years old. He started working in 2011 and he has a bonus of average 0.34. Is working in Seattle, United States. This might be one of the information you want. You might want more. That's why you might want to see your data. Make sure you delete so you don't begin to add a lot of tab on the side. Again, you can't double click directly on your graph. It will not really help you or do anything. Most of the computer or the Excel version will tell you that it cannot show or hide detail or selection. So what you'll have to do is you can just, again, click on one of your tab, click right, and then select unhide, and then you will see all of the sheet that you have hidden. I hope this pivot table step-by-step tutorial helped you. Let me know if you have any other question. Hope you enjoyed this video and it helped you. Like, subscribe, and comment. Let us know what else you might need help with. We are able to help you with everything and anything.
Indeed, everything and anything.